Hi guys, it's me and welcome back to another video. In this video, we are going to be discussing the Wiccan deities, who they are, how they became to be, and so much more. So if you are interested in learning more about that, continue on watching. Now, before I actually begin the video, I would like to start by saying ow. I hit myself. I would like to start by saying a disclaimer, and that is that not everybody will agree with what I am saying, and that is completely fine. You know, we are all in our separate journey, right? We all practice the same religion, but not all of us believe in the same thing, you know, and that's completely fine. The purpose for me actually making this video is to provide you, more resources about who they are, but also because I kinda didn't really see a video that pretty much spoke about what I am going to be talking about, and I was really bummed about it. But then again, I mean, if there's not content of what I want, I can make it, you know what I mean? So yeah, essentially this is my understanding and my interpretation of the god and the goddess, what they represent, how they became to be, etc. So yes, with all that being said, let's begin. Now, who are the Wiccan deities? So I believe that the Wiccan deities are essentially a personification of divine universal source energy. This is the energy that is a combination of both the masculine and the feminine energy, right? This is the energy that is found everywhere and in everyone. Now, of course, Wicca, being a religion that is earth centered, means that the gods are a personification of what is within and around earth. Right now, when I say within, I essentially mean plants, I mean crops, landscape, ocean, animals, the weather, natural disasters, and so much more. Now, when I say natural disasters and so much more, I essentially mean, or at least I come from a place of understanding that nature is not all love and light. Think about it like this. The same weather that gives us rain for, our soil, and the one that pretty much provides, I guess, water, you could say, is also the same weather that gives us a hurricane. And it's like the same thing that creates also destroys. It's not that one is good and the other is bad. It's just understanding that it just happens. It is, it's in nature, it's natural. Although as Wiccans, we celebrate life. I believe, that we acknowledge and also reflect on the dark of life. To give an example, the dark of life would be considered the the topic of death. It's such a mystery. A lot of people are afraid of it. It's this thing that has become so scary because you don't know where you're gonna go, if it's good or if it's bad, and so much more. And in Wicca, at least we know where we're gonna go. But that's a whole other story and a whole other video for another day. So aside from what is within the earth, as I said, also around the earth, right? If they are personification, what is also around the earth. Now, what I mean when I say around the earth, I essentially mean the sun, the moon, planets, other stars aside from our sun, outer space, the universe as a whole, galaxies, and anything that has to do with literally being outside of the earth, and any symbolism that is associated with everything that I've mentioned, right? So essentially think of, for example, the moon, right? The moon is associated with intuition, with emotion, with cycles. It's associated with magic, mysteries, darkness. The sun is associated with life, light, The gods are essentially, as I said, a personification of what is within earth, but also what is around, and any symbolism that is associated with all of that. This divine universal source energy is the energy that essentially unites us all as one. This is one of the reasons why you hear a lot of people in the spiritual community that says we're all one, we're all connected, unity, oneness. This is why. And this is the energy that pretty much connects us all with the divine. You know, this is that which makes us, or at least I believe, an extension of the divine. You know, this is also part of the reason why you see a lot of people within the spiritual, or even maybe I guess you could say the religious community, working on themselves, because they recognize, or at least they acknowledge, that when they work on themselves and seeing that God energy within them, and by God I don't mean the God, I mean source, right? By them connecting with that within them, they are going to pretty much be able to easily reflect that, in the sense of recognizing the godliness in other things that are aside of themselves, right? So a little, I guess, tip, if you're having troubles connecting with the gods, when you go in nature, when you're talking to animals, when you're doing something that pretty much would be normally associated with the gods, try, instead of looking for the gods outside of you, try to look for them within you. For the most part, this tends to be one of the Wiccan mysteries, right? That people tend to look for the gods outside of them, but try to look for them within you. That's one of the mysteries. They are in you, right? So if you don't have access to what is outside of you, hey, work on yourself, but I'm gonna get a little bit into that later. Going back a little bit into the divine universal source energy, and how I said that, this energy is a combination of both the masculine and the feminine energy. Now, this masculine and feminine energy is what would be called and referred to as the God and the Goddess, right? So the God and the Goddess, they are not, or at least I believe, they are not two separate things. They are two equal forces that are complementary yet polar opposites. Now, what I mean by this is essentially, think of light and dark, hunting and hunt and agriculture. Think of life and death, hot and cold. Think of day and night. Think of sun and moon and stuff like that. They are complementary. They are polar opposites, but even though they are that, they're still equal, right? Now, why do we personify energy? I believe that the reason why we as humans have personified energy is because not only does it allow us to understand and work with this energy, but it also allows us to connect and relate to it. I'm gonna get a little bit into that later, actually in just a few, but let me just continue on. So now for the God and the Goddess, most specifically, right? The Goddess, she is, as I said, she is the female aspect of the divine, and that being said, that means that she is the feminine energy of the divine source, right? And as such, she is recognized as the Goddess, right? And as the Goddess, she is known as the Great Mother, the Great Goddess. She's known as the Lady, Mother Earth. She's also known as having more specific names from specific pantheons. And, for the most part, these goddesses have a specific myth and personality associated with them, such as, the goddess Gaia, the goddess Hecate, the goddess Diana, Demeter, Isis, and many more. Now for the God, as I said before, the God is the male aspect of the divine, and because of this, he is the masculine energy of the divine source, and as such, he is recognized as the God. As the God, he is known as the Great Father, the Great God, the Lord. He is known as the Green Man. He's known as the Sun God. He's known as the Sky Father. And he's also known as Pan, Cernunnos, Hermes, and Apollo, Zeus, and many other names, right? Now, Of course, the gods, they have been worshipped by many cultures throughout history. And they may have even had, or at least for the most part, they may have even had a specific name, personality, a myth, and even might have belonged to a specific pantheon. And by pantheon, I mean a specific set of gods and goddesses from a specific place, such as Egypt, Greece, Rome, you get the idea. And yeah, but however, nevertheless, I personally believe that all gods are one god and all goddesses are one goddess, right? And these specific names, personalities, myths was given to them because it allowed for better connection, between, us as humans and the gods, right? It allowed us to relate to them better. And this is why you see, I guess, a lot of people that worship or work with gods based on the situation that are associated with said gods, right? If you are a mother and you're having trouble, connecting to that nurturing side of yourself, you would connect to, I don't know, let's say Gaia, or let's say Isis, a father, you would go for, well, I don't think you should go to Zeus, right? But I mean, you do you, boo. But you get the idea, right? This is why a lot of people connect with specific gods from specific pantheons, because their stories pretty much creates a connection with the person, and this connection allows easier access to connect with the godhead, which would be the masculine or the feminine energy, which would be the god or the goddess, right? These other gods that have names are essentially that link between them and the higher energy. Not to say that these other gods are any less than, it's just to say that they are, in my opinion, they create an easier connection to the higher energy, which is, the god and the goddess, but also they are a part of the godhead and the goddess head, I guess you could say, they are all a part of, they all contain something that the energy of, masculine and feminine pretty much contain. But I'm gonna touch a little bit about this later. Now, entering into more detail about the Wiccan goddess, or should I say being more specific, right? The Wiccan goddess. So she is essentially the goddess of creation, she's the goddess of fertility, but not only the fertility of humans, but also of animals. She's also the goddess of the earth and its agricultural fertility. She's the goddess of the moon, and as the goddess of the moon, she is known as having 3 phases and 3 aspects, right? That being the maiden, mother, and crone. The maiden being the new or the waxing moon, the mother being the full moon, and the crone being the waning moon. I'm not gonna get into too much detail here because I really want to make a video where I talk about the Wiccan triad, I guess you could say, that doesn't just include, the maiden, mother, and crone, but some people also work with a triad that has to do with the god and the sun, right? But again, I'm going to be making the video hopefully sooner than later, but before that I want to release another video because I got tarot cards that I really want to open, but I also want to make a video about it, but anyways, I'm gonna figure everything out, but this video is going to come. Anyways, she is the goddess of unconditional love. She is the embodiment of all love and the source of all fertility, right? She's the goddess of beauty, endless wisdom. She's the goddess of abundance, of magic, and way more, way more, right? As the goddess, right, she has dominion over animals, but more specifically the domesticated animals. She has dominion over the moon, and the sea. Now, the sea, think about it in the way that the moon causes change you know, in the sea, right? So the gravitational pull, you know, think about how the moon affects the sea. Or at least that's the way that I see it, you know. You know, she has dominion over agriculture, right? She has dominion over nature, because nature is sacred to her. Now, why is nature sacred to her? Because it came from her. But not only did it came from her, but she's also nature. So as the goddess, she lends us the gift of life with the promise of death and rebirth, right? Because from her all things came, and to her they shall return, right? But it's not a return that's like permanent. It's also like, you know what, thank you, but also here you go. That's the way that I see it, you know. There's also a quote that, or a lyric, I guess you could say. Well, it is a lyric, but I quoted it, so I mean, that comes from a song by Chalice and Blade called "I Hear You Calling," which is a kind of song. Essentially, this song is a form of the charge of the goddess, and it basically says, "I am the mother of all that lives. My love is poured on the earth." So the reason why I put this quote here is because this, I believe, embodies like the fact that the goddess is the source of all love, and pretty much, I guess, everything that I essentially said, you know, this quote right here, like, is literally pretty much what embodies her as a mother and the love that she has for us, you know? Now, symbols that are associated with the goddess are, you know, the triple moon. So again, the new or the waxing moon, the full moon, and the waning moon. But not just that, you know, there's also anything that is the receptive aspect of sex. So pretty much anything that resembles a womb or a vagina, but for the most part, it tends to be the womb, right? So things that resemble a womb, think of a cup, think of an inverted triangle, which I'm gonna put a picture, or pictures, I guess, here. They pretty much show the similarities between, you know, an inverted triangle and a womb. A cauldron, a chalice, and anything that is bowl-like, right? Anything bowl-like resembles the womb of the goddess, right? Which is something that is extremely sacred, right? Now, in terms of the Wiccan Horned God, I want to first of all touch on some of the reasons why he is horned. Amongst the many, is because, you know, horns are essentially a representation of his male virility, right? It is also the connection, his connection, to the wildlife, but also to hunting activities. Now, that being aside, I would like to mention that, you know, the Wiccan Horned God, or at least the Horned God, he is not Satan, the devil, or whatever you want to call it. That whole thing is another religion's creation, and I have a video where I actually talk about it called All You Need to Know About Wicca, or something like that, WICCA101, and I'm gonna put it there. So as the god, he is the god of creation, right? You know, think of the gods being or at least, you know, source, divine universal source energy. Think of it as, you know, it consists of a combination of both the masculine and feminine energy, you know, and it being a creator source, I guess you could say, a creational source, or creating source. Yes, I guess it being that, it is, you know, a combination of masculine, feminine, being the god and the goddess, right? And considering, you know, that the goddess is part of the creating source, the god as well, that is why I consider them both as being gods of creation. Also because it takes two to tango. And you know, he is also the god of sex. And because he is the god of sex, he is also the god of fertility of humans and of animals. Now, think about it like this. He is the action, right? Him being the god of fertility, he is the sex part, and the goddess is the part that happens after. He's the action, she's the result. he is what happens during, she's what happens after sex. I hope that makes sense. And him being a god of sex and of fertility, right, is one of the reasons, if not the only, I don't know, but at least one of the reason why he is pictured as having a phallus. You know, he's pictured as an phallic figure. I really hope I pronounced that correctly. Essentially means him having a big erect penis or an erect penis overall. He is also the god of the hunt and survival, right? That being said, he is the protector from wild animals. You know, he's the god that protects humans from wild animals, you know. He's also the god of the earth and its wild animals, you know. Him being the god of the earth, basically, and the goddess as well, the way that I differentiate them is essentially by making, or at least understanding, that the god is the god that, you know, he is the god of the forests. He's the god of the deserts, you know. He's the god of the valleys, you know, basically essentially those places, right? And you know, he is that is within the goddess. You know, he is the one that roams the earth. The goddess, on the other hand, she is literally the earth. She is the planet. He is what is within the planet. That is how I differentiate it, right? He's the god of the sky. He's the god of the sun and the stars, you know, the stars as well, because our sun is a star. Some people, however, associate stars with the goddess, while as the sun with the god. I, however, consider the stars and the sun as being something of the god, because the sun is a star. You know what I mean? His association with the sun means that he is the god of life and fertility, is because without the sun, first of all, we would all be dead. This right here, like this whole thing, would not even exist. That should be enough. But also because without the sun, not only would life cease to exist, but also we would be desolate of fertility. Like, you know what I mean? So yeah. And considering that he is the god of, you know, of the sun, life, he's also the god of life, death, and resurrection. And this is something that can be seen throughout the cycle of the sun throughout the wheel of the year. The sun is born, technically, you know, born. Then it grows in power until it reaches its peak. Then it loses its power and it dies, and then it goes back again. You know what I mean? The god, he has dominion over the wild animals. He has dominion over the sun, the sky, you know, hunting, and pretty much anything that is considered to be within nature. Now, he embodies the concept of loss, death, and also rebirth, right? He teaches us to understand death through him, because he literally goes through the process like every year. So, you know, considering that, he is the consoler of hearts, but also the comforter of hearts, right? You know, if you're going through a situation where you have lost someone, he would be the one that you would reach out to. Although you could reach out to the goddess, he is the one that I believe that would be the one that would be most suited for the job. Although you could reach out to them both at the same time. Either way is fine. Honestly, like, whatever works best for you. And with all that being said, you know, he is the ever dying, ever born, and also ever living god because of his, you know, life cycle. Symbols that are associated with the horned god is one of the symbols that I call the horned sun. This is the counterpart to the triple moon. Now, I don't know actually if this is called the horned sun. I personally call it horned sun because it is literally a circle with, you know, a crescent moon on top and horns, you know. Some people, when they draw it or when they make it or do anything with it, they refer to it as being a moon. I don't believe that. It doesn't make sense to me, you know, because to me, the goddess is the moon, the god is the sun. you know, and considering the horned, so horned sun, her being the triple moon, or you know, anything that refers to the moon. So that is why I called it the horned sun. But I don't know if this is like the actual like name. So if any of you guys know the right terminology to this symbol, like be sure, don't be shaboo, let me know in the comment section below. So yeah, so symbols associated with the god are essentially, you know, the horned sun, as I stated, and anything that is a projective aspect of sex. So think of anything that resembles an erect penis. So horns, the unturned triangle. I'm not into Illuminati. I'm not doing this to like, no, this is like me, like, you know, basically a triangle that is pointing up. Think of a wand, an athame, and anything that is pretty much phallus-like. So anything that it resembles a penis. And also you need to understand that sex overall, it's something that we do not consider to be something that you should be, you know, embarrassed about. It's not something that is shamed. It's something that we consider sacred, and we even celebrate it, you know. It's something that we hold sacred in our life. Think of it like this. It is sacred because without it, literally none of us would be here. It is the source of us being here. So why should you be ashamed of it? You know what I mean? So yeah, or at least that's one of the reasons, right? Right? And even though I said all of that about the gods and the goddess and their symbolism and all of that, there is a big but. And for the most part, the big but is that if you want to connect with a specifically named deity, the way that you would connect with them would be entirely different depending on who that deity is. Now, lastly, but certainly not to least, I will explain to you how I personally view like the whole thing of the gods and pretty much, I guess, everything that I explained. As you can see in this diagram that I created, the divine universal source energy is shown as the yin and yang symbol. The reason being is that that symbol is one of union and balance between polar opposites. Not only that, but although they are split into polar opposites, they're not entirely separate from each other because one contains a part of the other. Below, we see the source energy being the feminine and masculine energies, those being the god and the goddess. You can think of this split as the divine split if you want. Now, below those energies, we see the names of different gods and goddesses. This is because I believe that every god is one god and every goddess is one goddess. Every other goddess is basically a fraction of what would make the great goddess, which is the feminine energy. The same thing goes for the god. The two energies, the god and the goddess, are linked by a line in the middle. This forms a triangle. This is another version of what would be considered a trinity. There is the maiden, mother, and crone, also great lord, lady, and the all, amongst many other names. It's also worth mentioning that although the source energy is split into two halves, they still contain a part of the other. Think of how there are gods with goddess-like qualities and vice versa, or attributes. Below, there is a triangle that connects nature, animals, and humans with the gods. This is because they are in everything, because from them everything came. To connect with the gods, connect with nature. If you cannot go into nature, bring nature to you with houseplants or any other way. If you can't, you can connect with animals, but most importantly, connect with yourself as they are within you. Now, with all that being said, think of the quote, as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. I think that would be all for this video. I really hope that everything made sense and that everything was like well organized and worded. And if you have any questions, then by all means let me know in the comment section below. And yes, I have all the videos if you would like to watch them. Like, do that, boo. Like, I think you will enjoy it. You can use this video for your Book of Shadows. You can see it up there. It is a really good video. And yeah, that would be all. So if you guys like the video, be sure to leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I'll just see you guys later. Mwah.
Made me feel so much better.